Alright. Now, I've been meaning to do this one for quite a while, and this is the negatives, the bad points about the Note 2. Now, it's quite tricky for me to do this because I absolutely love it. And as impartial, I'm trying to be impartial with these things, if I can be, so that it's not, oh, he doesn't like HTC, or all that crap. But there are bad points to it, and they all kind of sort of manifest around one thing, and that is the physical size. It's a big phone. You obviously know it's a big phone when you get it. I've mentioned this in the good points thing. It is also the good point, one of the main good points about it, but one-handed navigation. There's a couple of options on here to make the settings, to make it easily usable in one-handed, and there's actually a section, one-handed operation, and in there we've got keypad, in-call buttons, Samsung keyboard, calculator, unlock pattern, and it shunts everything to one side so that you can use it with one hand. But practically speaking, well, why do we get smartphones? Well, normally we don't really need them, we know that, but we like to use the camera, we like to use the maps, we like to use email, browse, social networking stuff, and a few games and apps and stuff like that. But generally speaking, when I'm using a smartphone, it's the maps, which is something that I need. Now, I was working the other day down at London Town, and I had bag over one shoulder, overnight bag in one hand, phone in the other hand. So walking through rush hour, and I was like navigating to where I was going to go, and let's see if we can get in. You've got that typical sort of resting the phone on your little finger there, and my hands they're not the world's biggest hands, but you see the shoulder comes up when you try and get that top corner. I mean, look at that thumb there. So if you've got the map open, let's do that. Let's open a map. Doesn't really matter where we are, I suppose. So what happens is, as you reach over, you'll sort of flatten part of the screen and you'll touch elsewhere. So I was trying to zoom in. I mean, with two hands, that's the answer. You've got to use two hands, but from a practical point of view, you've got all your stuff in one hand, you've got your phone, and you're just like, right, where am I going? Where's that? What's going on? And you just can't reach that corner. And it winds you up a little bit because you've got to squeeze the phone hard because you don't want to drop this thing because it's big. It's going to go boom on the floor. It's going to disintegrate it probably because it is quite soft, plastic cornered and everything. Although it feels nice, it is quite. I think it would damage it quite a lot. But I found that, you know, when I was walking around with it, I was kind of cursing its size. You know, I love the size, but I was like, oh, if I want to reach up there and press that, and I just kept bombing out. I had to keep stopping, putting my things down, and moving around. So it wasn't practical from that point of view. So, and it all goes to things like when you're using the camera. Again, the camera module's great, it says, but you've got to do this kind of clamp the top, clamp the bottom, which is, I suppose, a typical grip on a smartphone, but it just feels. I mean, I passed it to my girlfriend picked it up last night, and she was looking at it, she nearly dropped it. And I have a mate, Rob, he's got huge bucket hands sort of thing, and it's distributed quite neat. It's not like it's top heavy or anything like that, but it's just quite easy to sort of be clumsy with it. So I suppose, other than the size of it, I haven't really got any bad points on there really. Yeah, you can move the keyboard so it goes down one side. It doesn't massively help you though, in my opinion, especially when you're sort of navigating and walking around with your maps, which is something that I tend to do a lot, and I need one hand. The other thing that I find with it now, this could be more of an Android thing, to be honest. I find that when I used to have an iPhone and I was navigating through the streets, obviously you could use that in one hand because an iPhone's probably about this big, you know, pen drive sort of size, which is fine, you know. I'm not slagging off the iPhone. The iPhone's good, but the little blue point when you're walking along the maps, you follow the streets, you can see where you're going, you got to the target. Now with Googly Maps on here, you've got like a little arrow that points you the direction you're facing, and it's all really good and stuff. But what I find with it, and I found it with the Galaxy S2, not so much with the S3, but when you are actually navigating street to street, you've got to pay close attention on the name of the streets. Let's just find some there. So like Grasmere Road, Dalton Road. Can we see any of that? The little blue cursor as you walk along. Say if you were walking up here and you were cut down this street, you'd find the blue cursor sort of here. It doesn't sort of pinpoint with military precision where you are. Now, I've noticed that with Google Maps a lot. Now, it's a bit of a strange one because I find that Google navigation, which uses the maps and the GPS, is spot on. Navigate to Starbucks. So navigating to Starbucks. Because we really want to go there. So it brings up getting driving directions, tells you. Yeah, so it tells you where to go, and you follow it, and it's pretty accurate. It's very accurate. It's very good. It's not really let me down like TomTom and stuff. But I find the actual street navigation of it, it gets you where you're going, and you plot the route and everything. That's all fine. It's all good. But it just, I mean, I know you've got a built-up area like London. You've got skyscrapers. You've got buildings and metalwork and railways all around everywhere. So whether it's got a lot to do with that, but I just tend to found that when I was using Google Maps on an iPhone, whether it's like the intelligence say, well, he's near that street, so he must be there. So it just seemed to sort of line you, you knew exactly where you were. But with Google Maps, there's quite a lot of drift on the Android. Now, whether that's the GPS module in the phone, I found it with pretty much most of them, to be honest, but I noticed it the other day quite a lot with this. I had to pay attention to the street names, which you should do anyway. But I was like, is it this one? Is it that one? Oh yeah, there we go. And then obviously you get to see where you're going. You've got that one hand thing going on, resting on your finger, and you're like, bags and everything, because you walk like that, because everyone does that. But yeah, if I had to say anything bad about it, it's the size of it. It's not for everybody. You know what you're letting yourself in for when you get something this big, but it'll frustrate sometimes. When you're sat and you're watching a film or whatever, and you're holding it, or you're texting with two thumbs and stuff, that's fine. But when you are trying to just, trying to get to that top, that's kind of stretching the thumb, and you find yourself holding it precariously, and to get to that corner, obviously to drag down your notifications bar, you don't even need to be unlocked in Android to get to it, but you've got to reach to this top bit here. So you find yourself lifting your thumb over like that and bringing it down, and it puts you back out a little bit sometimes. So again, I don't think anyone's going to buy this without really wanting this sort of size, but you've got to pick it up in the shop and think, am I going to be able to deal with something that sort of size? Any phone I look at now is tiny, minuscule, it really is. But the plastic build quality that people say, if you've held a Galaxy S2, that feels like very, very light, cheap and plastic. I like it though, don't get me wrong, I like the feel of that. This feels a lot more solid. It feels a lot more solid than that, much nicer. But again, it's not for everybody. I'm not going to use it as a bad point, because I don't see it as a bad point. I just think it's the map accuracy, not the navigator accuracy, but the actual Google Maps accuracy with the GPS, and the fact that holding the beast in one hand is difficult, whether you're using it as a camera, or using it as a map, or using it as a door. Look, it's nearly as big as that door behind me. In fact, it's the same size as a door. It's not really. But yeah, I think that's the only criticism I've got. As far as fitting your pockets and stuff, if you've got normal jeans, stuff like that, I just put it in my pocket then. It was dead easy. I showed you it in my last video, it's very straightforward to do. But pick it up and play with it rather than just ordering it online, because you might think, wow, this is far too big for me. Especially if you're coming from an iPhone, especially if you're coming from a previous to iPhone 5, because you put an iPhone next to it, I haven't got one with me obviously, but it fits. The iPhone is like this sort of size, it fits within the black screen. It's nowhere near, but nothing is, to be honest. Like I say, I got that Lumia 920 today, and that's a 4.5 inch screen, and this even dwarfs that. So it's a big phone. Yes, it's a good point of it, but it's also a bad point. So if you're thinking of buying one, really think about your little hands, especially if you've got smaller than usual hands, because it will annoy you. And as much as I love it, it really annoys me sometimes. So that's all I've got to say about it, because I've probably repeated myself 10 times thinking back, and I can't be bothered editing out the fact that I've said the same thing a few times. So, but yeah, bad points. Take care now. Bye bye then.